the How Could You podcast. I'm Lauren Tocci.
And I'm Ryan Tocci. Hey, Lauren, you've got a friend in me.
Is that one of the most iconic Disney songs of all time?
Oh, it should be. I mean, it's just wonderful.
It's so sweet.
Yes.
It's so happy. And it's so, affirming.
Right. But I think it encompasses what this movie is, right? It's just a film that just feels good. This is a song that feels good. It's wholesome.
Yeah. You think about, Circle of Life, Be Our Guest. I'm just, tipping my hand.
Circle of Life is just forever ingrained in my head because of your brother.
Oh.
One time we were in his basement hanging out with our nieces and nephews, and he continuously just played Circle of Life over and over and over.
But it's so much worse. He was only playing the first 5 seconds and then just starting it over, and the kids were screaming. It was the best.
It was a lot more fun than it sounded.
It was. Wow, we made my brother sound like Sid. Well, welcome, everyone. If this is your first time joining our podcast, we are two people who fell in love at a movie theater and never quite left. We started this podcast to fill gaps in our film knowledge, and it's evolved into conversations about our not-so-favorite films, our favorite films, including the one we're going to get to talk about today.
Yeah, this is a special one because this has been, kind of long time coming, been requested, maybe not the specific movie, but from our younger listeners of the show. Our nieces, Ellie and Charlotte, have been asking for us to do a kids movie, talking to listener Ryan Andrews about the show, and he wanted a kids movie. I promised him Toy Story. So hoping we're fulfilling this, kind of request from our younger listeners who we love having, tune into the show.
And it really brought us to an exciting way to look at this episode because, one, it's always great to revisit a Pixar movie, and it actually helped to give us our How Could You, which we'll get to in a second. But first we have to do Tossi's takes.
This is actually our second animated film.
What was the first?
Nightmare Before Christmas.
Oh, that Halloween movie. Got it. Okay. So, Ryan, have you watched anything recently, although I already know the answer to this, of what you've watched recently that you would like to share with the audience?
You want my Tossi's takes?
Yes.
My Tossi's takes, judging by the listenership and feedback from our last episode, is, guys, you should check out the movie Us. And then my Tossi's take is, hey, guys, maybe listen to that episode. It made me laugh.
No further information needed. It was honestly, it's a passion episode for us because we both love that movie and wanted to talk about it. I hope people go and check it out because not that this is a little known movie. It was it had a major release, but if you've not seen it, I highly recommend checking out Us. It's a really great start of summer movie.
I agree with that, and I just was shocked at how many people had not seen it. But we did have some people listen and say, oh, they're going to check it out, or some people that really gave nice feedback to the episode, but said maybe it's not for them. So sometimes I forget our passion for horror maybe not connect.
And the thing is, I'm afraid of my own shadow, so
yeah,
really. So my obsession with horror is very strange, because I'm paranoid all the time, and this movie kind of is a deep-seated fear about notions of reality, and
right.
I'm convinced I'm in the simulation, so
You're talking about Toy Story now, right?
Yes. Oh, I will get to my childhood trauma surrounding Toy Story here in a second.
Really quick, though, my real Tossi's take for the week is The Northman. You guys hear me on this show talk all the time about Robert Eggers. Huge fan. He hits it out of the park again. Shame that it took so long to get to see it, but so happy we ended up getting to see it in the theater, just the two of us. Although, come on, guys. Original film in the theater. You gotta check it out. You gotta go see it. That's what we need. We need those great, original films still being made. And this is, Robert Eggers keeps doing it. Highly recommend it. Beautiful film. Just every piece of it is Shakespearean and just so well thought out. Great acting. 2 hours of Anya Taylor-Joy. I'm always there for. Skarsgård is amazing in it. Just highly recommend it.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's so beautiful, and it feels like a story that feels ancient and knotted, and it's because it is. So Hamlet, the Shakespearean play, comes from this story, and it feels epic. I said to you at the end, you've never seen Gladiator, and you've never seen Braveheart, and probably a lot of other epic films.
Could I?
and listen, I've been thinking about that. At some point we needed to take one of those down. But the problem is once you've now seen The Northman, and it's like kind of the best version of one of those. So I doubt I could get you to enjoy one of those films. You'll just be like, well, I like The Northman better. But like there's something artistic, and there's like a real like commitment to like the mythos and kind of like ethereal beauty like in The Northman that's not always present in those like really big like epic kind of war films. But it's so brilliant.
Yeah, I mean, Robert Eggers has my money for the rest of my life. Like, I am there all the time. And it's because he does with film exactly what I want, which is to be transported into this world and feel encompassed by it. And it is not an easy world necessarily to be in all the time, but it is one that I feel involved with and just, yeah, that's my big one. But I want to know yours. What is yours for the week?
My Tossie's takes is I want Robert Eggers to direct something on Broadway so we can go see it. Because that's how he started. If you didn't know this, he started in like production design for theaters, and I honestly kind of want to say it. But my Tossie's takes is probably an obvious one. Go see Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. Obviously, my love for Marvel knows no boundaries, including the boundaries of the multiverse, which are really non-existent. I don't want to talk much about it because it's obviously it's newer release and there are spoiler elements to it. I think Marvel is really rewarding people for also paying into watching the TV series, which I think is cool. I know some people don't really love that. I do. There's some really wonderful horror elements in this. Some cold blood mutilations. But it's a lot of fun. Oh, wait, that feels weird after the previous sentence I just said. But I loved it. I thought it's the most grounded version we've seen of Doctor Strange, like really pulled away from just that raw arrogance into something that feels like, yeah, this is a guy who got blipped for 5 years and has had to reckon with a lot. I loved it. Go see it. Go see really original films, but also go see the things that you're meant to see in a theater as well. Yeah,
I'm with you. I mean, Doctor Strange, the first film, was one of my least favorite of the Marvel, and this one would be up there as one of my favorites. I'm with you. It's so good. Sam Raimi is such a great choice. I know that it's very mixed reviews on people liking it or not, but I'm in the boat with you that I think it was a really great film.
But the film we're here to talk about today, we're here to talk about Toy Story. And I feel like there's no other way to start this conversation than to say, Ryan Tocci, did you have a favorite toy as a child?
I get to talk about toys for the next hour?
Absolutely not. I'm going to give you
Do you want my favorite toy now? My favorite toy,
I don't know what you're talking about. Our house isn't filled with toys that are elegantly displayed.
I have a Turbo Man doll right above my head at the moment.
You do.
Like a full-fledged giant Turbo Man doll.
A good guy doll. A full-fledged Chucky just in the corner.
Yes. That's how I like to live.
All right, let's take this back to childhood, though. Yeah. What were your favorite toys of childhood?
I'm sure I've talked about this, too, on the show at this point, but I am a full-fledged, 100% all-in master of the universe. Like...
Do you want to talk about the fact that Castle Grayskull is in our dining room?
Yeah, it is. Yep. We display it proudly. If I could get a full-fledged Eternia, I would love that, with the motorized, ship that goes around it into all three pieces of it. So I have to go with He-Man.
Yeah, of course.
I could probably pick specific characters. Give me Merman, Skunkor, I don't know, Ram Man, Orko, Battle Cat. Like, give me them all, which I almost had all of them.
Well, your dad spent a lot of time on eBay finding them for you later, right?
He got more. He got some later, like when eBay first started to take off.
Yeah.
He got really into eBay and was started. So I have a lot of like duplicates that are like in packs and really good condition and stuff. But as a kid, I had the majority. He did pick up a few. One I still don't have, Scareglow. That is one of my all-time like. Didn't have it, but that one came later, right at the end of their run. Also, though, once, because everybody probably remembers and knows or have heard the story about Master Universe, it kind of was a very bright flame and went out real quick.
Yeah.
So it wasn't around for a huge amount of time, so I probably, like most kids my age, transferred it into Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and the real Ghostbusters. Those were probably the three major sets of toys that I played with as a kid.
Did you have the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles sewer set?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Oh, that was, like, so cool. So my brother would let me play with his. And I thought that was the coolest thing ever. Like,
it was awesome.
Because it was like, because you had like the top level and then it was like the sewer. It was like the dopest thing. It had those like green tunnels.
Oh yeah.
Like if you got it apart, it didn't fit right back together, right?
I used to like wear those on my arm.
Like, of course. It's probably because you were doing some weird basement wrestling or something.
Listen, my family, we used to have boxing matches in the basement, wrestling matches.
I'm sorry, can you explain those boxing matches with one glove?
One glove. Yes, that's, I'm sure
My brother and I used to make Billy Joel music videos, so I don't know. So this is where we shame our siblings.
This would be great. If we were doing this putting these podcasts on YouTube, like a lot of podcasters, this would be where I would clip it in right now. A clip of you guys doing those videos.
It was to the song I Go to Extremes. That's the one I remember the most vividly.
Your brother's was I'm Just a Gigolo.
So that was his karaoke song.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Well, no, actually, he used to sing that too. But he used to do I'm Just a Gigolo at karaoke up at Woodloch Pines.
I'm sure he's glad that we've put that out there for the millions and millions of listeners that we have.
Mine was It's Still Rock and Roll to Me by Billy Joel.
Fantastic. Let's just do that. That might be the new show. No. Sorry, kids. We've moved on to talking about the shame of our childhoods.
I'm going to talk about my favorite toys so we can move off of my karaoke career real quick. Mine was, my Barbie Dream House. Awesome. I had the one that had the motorized elevator, and that was like a big deal. I also had a topless Barbie Jeep. Wait, that sounds weird. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it didn't have a top on it. Like, it didn't have a roof. It was like this white Jeep.
Nobody thought anything different than that.
Fair enough.
We've talked about this family-friendly episode.
So sorry. I had American Girl dolls, and I really jacked up my one doll's hair because I was like braiding it and brushing it, and like they were like, you had to like take good care of them, so she had to go to American Girl Doll Hospital and get her hair replaced, and then she came back home in a hospital gown with new hair, and I realized this is either the bougiest thing that has ever existed for a toy, or the thing of like a really great start to a horror movie. Like your American Girl doll comes back, but not quite right.
Right. She's been fixed. She's different.
And her head just slowly turns around. Right. I want to talk to you about the colonial war times, Lauren.
I don't know what you're talking about. American Girl dolls seem very normal. I mean, they just have a store in New York where everybody can go and have a tea party at these dolls.
Hashtag that's what I want to do for my birthday. Never got to do it as a child. I could find my dolls. Never mind. We won't do this.
It sounds like a nightmare.
But so, and the toys obviously like feature like so prominently in this. And as we talk about this film, like obviously there's a good mixture in this film of like things that were toys that people would commonly have and obviously things that are kind of like somewhat based off of. But I find the story of how this film comes to be really interesting going all the way back to 1979. I'm going to take us on a little trip here about the Pixar history. I appreciate you doing the Wayne's World transition for me. So this, in 1979, George Lucas and a guy by the name of Ed Catmull, who becomes very important to the Pixar universe, they essentially start a company, and it's because they want to be practicing and innovating on like the latest computer graphics. Like, how do we create machines? How do we innovate our technologies so that we can kind of match that? Which makes a lot of sense. New Hope, or rather it was just Star Wars at the time, comes out in 1977. Lucas wants to be on the cutting edge of that, and later in his career maybe to disastrous and often argued about how much he relies on computer graphics later on in his career. But they wanted to kind of be on the edge of that. The first example of what they were able to do comes in 1982 with the very famous Genesis effect sequence from Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan. So this is when the plant life all comes together. This is actually the first completely computer-generated scene in a live-action movie. So they were really at the cutting edge of this, and that only continues. 84, John Lasseter gets hired, which is kind of a cornerstone of like, the success of Pixar, and the director of Toy Story and the director of many Pixar films, and such a cornerstone of the company. And then in 86, Steve Jobs gets involved. So he purchases the computer division of this company that Lucas created, and it's only 40 people. And this is where you get the team up between the computer animation production systems and Disney. So this is where they team up. So this goes all the way back to 86, where Disney was teaming up with Pixar to try and come up with like what was going to be that next edge of this. 88, the Tin Toy comes out, made with one of the technologies that was like kind of there was a lot of proprietary technology at this company, which I always find like interesting and terrifying. Like they were just like creating and tinkering like on their own. But Tin Toy becomes like the first example of what they can do. And weirdly enough, instead of, I think we all think like Tin Toy comes out. Well, Tin Toy is like the prototype for Toy Story. But instead of going into features, even though they've shown like what they can do with this short animation piece, they actually go into commercials. So they do like a popular ad for Listerine. This ad I actually very vividly remember from the early 90s. It was an ad with the Lifesavers gummies doing a conga line.
Oh yeah.
Do you remember
definitely.
that ad?
Mm-hmm.
So that was Pixar that was doing this.
Do you know where some of their commercials pop up at?
No, where?
They're actually in Toy Story 2.
Oh, seriously?
The scene when they're trying to watch the TV and find Al's Toy Barn, and they're going through the channels really quick. A bunch of their commercials that they had done are clipped in there.
Oh, that's a great Easter egg. No, I never knew that. And like, it's one of those things, anytime something's happening quick in a Pixar film or a Disney film, there's probably something hidden.
Right, yeah.
But I didn't know that's what that was. And I don't watch that one because that song depresses the heck out of me. But, so from those commercials, they were so successful and people were so amazed by what they were able to do. They were like, all right, that's it. Let's make a feature movie. And then you have Toy Story, which comes out in 1995, and is very, often praised for being the first ever computer animated film. It makes 192 million at the box office domestically, I think 396 worldwide. Like, this is a smash success. And it really, the cool thing about this is Pixar really comes to be because it was a group of innovators and creatives that were like, what could we do? If the technology existed, what could we do? And they spent so much time, I mean, we're talking from 1979 to 1995, figuring out, is there a way to make these computer graphics better? Is there a way to push the technology forward? And this film is fun to talk about, not only because Pixar or Toy Story is such a phenomenal movie, but also because of it changed the course of film history. I mean, this is a decision that Lucas makes in 79 to say, this is going to be the thing that changes the landscape of children's entertainment. And, and children's entertainment doesn't even feel right because I think you can enjoy this film at any age, which is our how could you for this episode, which is...
How could you not be an adult and love Pixar films?
Exactly! Because they're so good.
They are.
I realized something...
That's why they're the game changer of all of this.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I realized something when we were watching it in preparation of this episode. I looked over and I was like, he has to take more notes than I do. And I realized because I often will come home and just throw a Pixar movie on. And a lot of times I throw on Toy Story because it's so good.
You're much more the rewatchable though of our household. I don't go back and rewatch films enough. I'm so happy to actually be doing this episode because you're right. I don't know the last time I really sat down and watched this version in a long time. So it was just a joy to sit down for the hour and a half. And it's just such a quick hour and a half, and not in a bad way, in a very, very good way. It's such a just wonderful film that is just perfectly contained in the time that it's in there.
Yeah, and I think the real fun of the film is like it's told like in these like segments of like the house, and then to go to Pizza Planet, and then the horrors of like Sid's house, and then the great final cheese sequence. And I think what is so incredible about watching Pixar
you said chase sequence?
Yeah.
I thought you said cheese sequence.
No.
And I was in my head trying to go, when was there a cheese sequence?
No, we'll get to the fact that you haven't seen Ratatouille.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's simple. I hate rats.
I know, but it's so charming. But I think that's the thing with all...
As if everybody out there loves rats.
Yeah, there's people always watching like, I have pet rats, how dare you?
Right.
I think the thing with Pixar movies and like what makes them at least so rewatchable to me is because they're so well written and they're so funny and there's so many great lines. And I think like Pixar in many ways like, took that hiding things that were maybe had like adult subtext to it, like in films in ways, and not that other animation studios weren't doing this, but I think they kind of perfected that really nice balance of like, it's not so cheeky that it seems off. It's like kind of the right play. Like Woody saying, the word I am searching for, I can't say because there were preschool toys present. Like, you're an adult watching it knowing the words, but even as a kid, you can kind of pick up on maybe what's being said there.
Right, and it's also, though, it's not done so overtly, like, nudge, nudge, wink, wink, adults. We've got humor here for you. Like, and I think that's what makes it timeless, where it's, they are, at its core, kids' films that are accessible to any age. Like, and I think that's where they knew to find their sweet spot in these films and what has made them, groundbreaking and everlasting.
Well, in so many ways it calls, or it answers the call by, Walt Disney himself to make these things timeless. And that you're not supposed to age out of Disney.
Right.
You're supposed to always be able to love it and enjoy it. Certainly we've not aged out of Disney, but he designed the parks that way. He made his films that way, and Pixar really picks up on the natural progression of that. If we're going to make computer-generated films, how do we make the humor in a way that's always going to be accessible to its audience?
I'm just biting my lip, not trying not to make a Ron DeSantis joke there.
Well,
but somebody did outage Disney. Anyway,
somebody needs to get visited by 3 ghosts real quick.
The ghost of Walt, the ghost of Roy, and
Steve Jobs, but in a white turtleneck.
Right?
So it's serious.
We're both seeing the 3 of them like Force ghosts at the moment.
Yes, that's how I'm seeing them. So what are your first memories seeing Toy Story? Did you see this in theaters?
So, I don't have any recollection of the first time I saw this movie. I just don't. I don't know. I don't believe that I saw it in the theaters. The first time, I believe I watched it at home. So it's going to be funny because I know this question's going to get thrown back to you. I was 15 when this came out. So being a teenager, and again, we talked about, Pixar films now to me seem like the movie you go to, most people go to. 15 doesn't necessarily mean you're running out to see, a cartoon at the time, but at some point I saw it, and at some point I loved it. I have my biggest memory of this movie, the kind of benchmark moment for me was actually at high school. We, right before, a lot of high schools do, I believe, or used to do, maybe, is probably more, the last day before Christmas, our school, a couple of years, would get everybody into the auditorium and they would play us a movie. One year they did the Santa Claus, and one year they did Toy Story. And I remember watching Toy Story and just having a really fond memory of, I was the movie dork, so I wasn't caring about anything else. It felt like I was at a movie and I wanted to sit there and watch my movie.
You're quiet, my classmates.
I did feel that way.
It is time to watch a film.
But yeah, that's my kind of we talk about nostalgia moment of this movie. And ever since then I was hooked. And I know Toy Story 2, I went to the theater to see it on opening weekend. And I've seen every other one in the theater since then on opening weekend or close to it. So yeah, so that would be my memory, of why this movie has been everlasting, where, like I said, I don't necessarily remember where it hooked in, but I know when it was, it was embedded there. So what about you?
Well, so I was 9 when it came out. So like a child, I saw it in the theaters.
Yeah, I had a feeling that's where we were going.
But I don't remember seeing it in the theaters, just more of it existing in my mind. I remember my brother had a really awesome Buzz Lightyear action figure that was pretty tall, quote unquote life size Buzz Lightyear, because it was probably the size he's supposed to be in the movie. And I remember thinking that was really awesome. He had this really awesome Xenomorph too, that the head, the skull cracked open on it. And it was like next to that, which I always kind of really enjoyed.
I want to peek into that room when those two sentient toys came alive.
Yeah. Buzz was like, what is going on? I can't even, again, there are preschool toys present or listening to the episode. I can't say probably what Buzz Lightyear would have said seeing that. But, you know, here's where I was really lucky. I grew up in the Disney Renaissance of films. Like, so what is typically referred to as the Disney Renaissance starts in 89 with Little Mermaid and then kind of goes through a good portion of the 90s because you have Lion King, Aladdin, Beauty and the Beast, Hercules, Mulan. So you have all of these like really iconic Disney movies that come out in that time period, great music. And one of the things I love is that Pixar really wanted to swing away from that. Like, they knew that Disney was doing really well, and they were like, look, we don't want to tell a fairy tale. You know, we want to tell something that's very different, and not that music isn't going to be a part of this, but it's not going to be a musical. So this felt very different. The animation style felt different. The storytelling felt different. And it went through, like...
Well, I was going to say, the movie originally was very different.
Yes, it was.
I mean, for starters, Woody was a jerk.
Yeah.
Like, I guess, like you said, what was it? They had 3 rules, right? When they brought it to them, which was, you said, no fairy tale, no villain getting bigger in the 3rd act, and that they wanted a protagonist that was likable, that was the most liked character, which I thought was really interesting.
Okay, so here's the thing. You just said a thing, and I'm like, oh my god, in all of these movies, the villains get bigger in the 3rd act. It's like, oh my god.
Yes.
I don't know why that's never occurred.
I was like, hold on. We see what's happening.
Yeah,
it was the sky beam of animation films. Yeah, so it's, and then, like we talked about, so, you know, it was very different, like you were talking about. It had gone through a lot of different versions of it, and one was... Woody, they wanted to be a little more edgier with the Woody character, and Woody was supposed to be really mean to all of the characters. Like, just not nice, not likable. And I guess at some point, they realized, we went a little too far, and they realized that they had to start pulling it back.
Which I understand, because, like, if the whole thing is centered around, like, we have to understand and believe that these two are going to become best friends by the end of the movie, like... the transgression can't be so dire that you're like, why would anyone like Woody? Like, because that's not fun. Like, and if you don't want, you know, a villain that's like kind of that sneaky, seems like the protagonist, actually the antagonist. Like, if you don't want to do that thing, then you kind of have to make him likable, but justified why he's so mad. Because when I watch this movie, I'm like, I get it, Woody. I get your anger, and nobody's listening to you, and they all, you know, you went from being the leader to not, and there's like this real identity crisis that happens for him, and he's watching this toy that has no idea he's a toy, and how frustrating that must be that he has no one to turn to and go, isn't this kind of ridiculous? Like, even his girl is like, looks like I found my moving buddy.
Right.
Like, Bo Peep.
They do turn on him quite a bit quickly.
Well, and I think it's like, there's this weird thing that happens where they're all so afraid of new toys coming in, which I felt like was a weird thing. Like this, they're kind of tweaked out. They want to be the only one of their version of toy, except for Mr. Potato Head. Like, but you know, like Rex is like really freaked out. There's going to be like a meaner, more threatening dinosaur, you know, because he's like a dinosaur with like severe anxiety, which I feel. I feel all of Rex's like worries. He just wants to be scary and he's not. And like, but then when a new toy comes in, they're all so welcoming, except the one guy who was like, guys, we need to give him a big Andy's Room welcome. It's like a great turn.
Well, yeah, it's the classic, until you feel threatened, everything's fine.
Yes.
Right?
Well, and I like that they made Woody like a different, because he was supposed to be a marionette.
A ventriloquist dummy.
Yes. And I'm glad they didn't, because those are inherently terrifying.
They said it was very creepy. I've seen one sketch of it, and yeah, it's it would have been, you know what it reminded me of? Of Tom Hanks when they're going through the cart in Polar Express, and they have all those dolls that are coming down. Like,
I hate that part of the movie.
Right?
Can you imagine that, though, for a whole movie?
Yeah, that's supposed to be maybe your protagonist. I don't know.
So that calls to mind as we're starting to talk about, you know, so our main characters. We've got Buzz and we've got Woody. We've got, you know, the rootinest, tootinest cowboy in the whole wide west, and a space ranger. Are you a Woody or are you a Buzz?
I think I'm a Woody. I think I'm optimistic until I feel threatened, and I get a little snippy.
Accurate.
Everything starts to feel a little worrisome. Actually, I mean, honestly, probably you were talking about Rex. I'm probably much more Rex.
I think you are Woody with Rex-like tendencies.
Small arms and all.
Small arms and a big head. I'm a Buzz. I believe wholly in my reality, and I do not. And if I am challenged by it, I have a complete mental crisis at which I throw myself down the ground. It's all fine. So you're sucking on Darjeeling.
You every so often I will come home and you're Mrs. Nesbitt.
You know what? Honestly, my therapist has advised me to name my anger and my anxiety, and I think I'm going to call it my Mrs. Nesbitt now.
That's fantastic.
Because I do feel like I have days. I can be really highly confident, self-assured, and really believing my own perceptions of reality, and then everything can just come crashing down.
All right, it's not how I expected us to go, but I really think that we've talked that out and it makes sense now.
So we know whose camp we belong to. You are a Woody, I am a Buzz. Or, sorry, Woody with Rex-like tendencies. I am a Buzz. But what's your favorite scene from the movie, if you had to pick one?
Oh God, I knew we were going to talk about this, and I should have one specific one. It's so hard to choose. I think if I had to lean towards one, because they're all so good. You talked about it at the beginning. Like, it's got these just great little different segments in there, from like, you know, the opening and You Got a Friend in Me to, you know, the birthday party, to, like you talked about, the chase scene. To me, I probably go back to Pizza Planet.
Oh, nice.
You know, and I think it's because even 42-year-old me wants a restaurant that looks like Pizza Planet. Like, I want to be playing the games that they have in there, the Whack-It Alien and like...
Okay, can we talk about that? That spaceman is like covered in blood.
Right.
Like, that's some alien stuff. Also, if you have not listened to our episode on Alien, listen to our episode on Alien. But like, that's a creepy game.
But I mean, that's like every, from the guards that have to let you in. Like, we would be ordering from Pizza Planet if that Pizza Planet truck pulled up. We'd be ordering from Pizza Planet like every other night. Like,
we ordered from a vegan pizza place. We are not vegans because it's X-Files themed.
That is very true.
So if there was a Pizza Planet in town, they would get all of our money.
Yeah, shout out to Paranormal Pizza here in Bethlehem, PA.
If you live locally to Bethlehem, try a Paranormal Pizza. It's awesome.
But yeah, X-Files themed, great. I'm totally with you, right? You know, and it's just it's a fun scene. The aliens in there and the claw, what's it's just the whole aspect of it, and Woody's still trying to get Buzz, to understand, and it's, we get the craziness of Sid, but not over,
Well, you also get that great Woody line when they're like, when Buzz gets pulled up in the claw and then the aliens start pushing him, he's like, "Stop it, you zealots!"
Right? Or when the aliens get pulled out, later, my friends, like, I'm going, so I'm gonna lean towards Pizza Planet. And you said it while we were watching, and I totally agree. Disney World, where are you on this? Why do we not have a really good Pizza Planet, at least at your park at this point? Yeah,
I feel like, and I'm excited because there's going to be like the Jesse's Roundup like barbecue places coming to their like Pixar land, but I feel like not just having a full-fledged Pizza Planet is a real missed opportunity because like, and I get for this, the concept of Pixar Land is that you are one of the toys.
I knew you were going to go with that.
So I guess it doesn't canonically make sense with the storytelling of the land, but also, like, I'm not actually a toy, so just give me a Pizza Planet.
Yes.
I probably tipped my hat to this earlier, as we were talking about Buzz Lightyear. I am a big fan of the Mrs. Nesbitt tea sequence because it's so unhinged. Like, it's so ridiculous to have, like, a toy completely in crisis and to really live in that space for a while. I give credit credit to the animators going, nah, the adults need this. And and as you grow up with this film, you'll be like, I get you, Buzz, in this moment. But I think, one of the really incredible things about this is like the world building and kind of the like existential crisis it gives you as a child about toys in general. Because it did that to me. I could not throw out or donate any toys as a youth because I was worried that they maybe were sentient. And
as a youth, you still have a hard time getting rid of anything because you're worried about its feelings.
I really am. I'm really empathic towards like objects. Like it's this weird, and that's what I kind of love about the movie because it makes you question. And I like that the rules of it are pretty defined for the most part. Like, why are they sentient? I don't know. Why do some of them have their toy identity and others don't? Have no idea. But it's just the fact that they might. And like, look in this room we're sitting in. There's a lot of toys. What if these things just like come alive like while we're sleeping? If my living dead dolls are like trucking around here at night, like wouldn't that be fascinating? And I now can't get rid of them. I don't want them to think they're
You made a Funko of me. So at some point there's a little Funko of me that runs around in this room.
But there's also a little Funko of Walt Disney in here. So that means like you and Walt are just hanging out talking about the parks.
I'm all about that.
Maybe you can get little Funko Walt. I mean, this is going really off the rails. All to say, like, I think one of the things I love about this movie is it sets up a concept that, like, I think is kind of like, it's so intelligent and so childlike at the same time of, like, what, like, a fascinating thing to, like, look at a toy and go, like, what if you're secretly alive in there and you come alive when I'm not in here? And, like, your identity is centered around being my toy. And then also, like, really terrifying because that means they come alive at night. That means if I throw them around, I'm, like, throwing a being around. Like, it's just, it calls to so many questions.
But what I like and what I appreciate is the majority of the toys are all good. In this film, I mean, Mr. Potato Head's a little cranky, a little willing to turn on Woody quickly.
I don't like Mr. Potato Head.
But he's ultimately a good guy.
Is he?
Like, all the toys are pretty much good guys, except for when you start to get into some of the sequels, right? Like, then we start to get to a little bit.
Lotso Bear.
He's
raspberry scented.
Do you know Lotso Bear's in this movie?
Lotso Bear's in this movie. Where is he?
Yes. So Lotso Bear is actually when they have the staff meeting or whatever you call it, when they're talking about buddying up, and Woody yells up, "You guys listening up there?" And it's up on top of the desk. You can see a pink bear. So Lotso Bear was originally supposed to be in this Toy Story, but they couldn't get the fur right. So all you see is this very different looking pink bear on the top of this desk. But that is essentially the first parts of Lotso Bear.
Oh, that's fantastic. Pixar, man. And, like, if you want to take a deep dive on it, certainly the Pixar theory in itself is a lot of fun, even though it's not, like, exactly Disney confirmed. But I love, like, all of the Easter eggs in this. And this is the origin point of all of those Easter eggs then being dropped in the other films, which is, such, like, a remarkable commitment to, like, saying this is essential to our story and we want these things to feel connected and we want you to, to be able to pick up on these things over time. And I think that's the thing, is there's so much care and love in each sequence. It's almost why it's hard to pick a favorite scene. Like, I'm saying the Nesbit thing, but, like, honestly, the horror fan in me really loves the turn of all of the reconstructed toys coming out and fixing Buzz.
Really
and
creepy.
It's so creepy, but at the same time, it's also, like, this really great moment of, like, no, they're still toys just like you are. Like, it's kind of like there's a nice message in there.
You know what? I changed my answer. I'm more the mechanical spider baby head, one-eyed baby head in Sid's room.
Can I tell you?
Yeah.
As of late, you are.
And I will talk to my therapist about that and find a name for mine. The funny thing about those characters, too, are this movie, obviously, we know now as Toy Story to be this immensely juggernaut of a franchise. So they had actually some hard times with the toy ends of this, right? So Mattel and I can't think of the other one. They weren't really necessarily willing to put out the toys immediately. So they actually got some small Canadian company to be putting out the original toys. So they're actually the first ones to put these out. And Disney had wanted them to make the Sid toys but they were just like, no.
Oh, that's such a missed opportunity.
Agreed. I'm sure by now, somewhere along the line, they've made them. I know for a while at Disney World, if you went into their giant arcade place, which I can't think of the name of it at the moment.
Disney Quest?
Disney Quest, yes. So if you went into Disney Quest, there was a portion in Disney Quest where you could make your own toy, and you made Sid's toys. So you could make these just, crazy-looking toys, which was kind of fun.
And the thing is, like, I'm going to say, I don't think Sid's the villain of the movie. He's just playing with toys his way. I think that's how I want to feel about this. I mean, I'd have to report him if he was a student. But
you're not wrong until you really start to look around Sid's room. Sid's not right. He may not be wrong necessarily because he doesn't understand that the toys are alive, but he is one step away from...
Can I tell you? I don't think the sister's right either. Like, I know they dress her friendly and she's got a cute doll, but there's something sinister in her eyes.
I just don't even understand some of the things that are going on in Sid's room. Why does he have 8 locks on his door? Why does he have a clamp?
The clamp is worrying.
Yeah, I mean, it's just...
Why is he allowed to order a rocket? Because if we believe this to be taking place in the 90s, the internet's not that accessible to children. So, like, where did he order that from?
The big one.
Like a mail order catalog of, like... kind of like weapon grade rockets.
He's like the kid from Better Off Dead, when the kid just keeps ordering these things and they just keep bringing these like crazier and crazier things for John Cusack's brother in that movie. But yeah, he's got a notebook in there that's the improvised interrogation techniques. He also has barbed wire around his bed.
Okay, I did catch that this time. All right, I'm gonna walk it back. Sid's a psychopath.
Yes.
And I think there's some serial killer version of this.
I'm pretty sure that he commits to the dark side because he starts talking to him about the rebels and where the rebels...
He does. He wants to know where the rebel base is. Yeah. He's got real, like imperial, interrogation, posture. Real straight.
He's very big fan with, I think, General Hux.
Yeah. General Hux and him understand each other, except I think he's kind of annoyed by General Hux. If they're put in a room together, I think he's kind of like, you're not severe enough. Yeah, that whole sequencing, I think, works really, because it is such nightmare fuel, and it's so great when Woody has that "so play nice." Like, it's so creepy and great, and such a great payoff. And I love... I love the end sequence too, like the kind of the chase sequence, not the cheese sequence, the chase sequence, as it were, of like them trying to get into the moving van. That it's the team up you've been waiting for the whole movie. And it's so nice.
I go back to the birthday party. I think that's a really fun opening to this movie. You get to start to see all of these characters so much. And I think what's something that really helps with this movie is when you're looking in the background, something that they really were smart with was getting toys that we know. Right? Like, when we're seeing in the background... Mousetrap and, Candyland and all of those types of games and, the See and Spell and all these other toys.
Etch-a-Sketch.
Funny story with that. So Etch-a-Sketch was actually about to go bankrupt. Was in this movie and got a huge hike of 20-25% sale boost because of this movie. Ends up saving the company.
Can I go back to an earlier conversation? Light Bright. I loved my Light Bright. I just want to bring that back up as toys. I'm thinking about toys
also
I can
feeling like you don't care that Etch-a-Sketch was saved. You were just like, Disney saved Etch-a-Sketch, and you're like, be gone with you, Etch-a-Sketch. Erase you from existence. Shake you and erase you from existence.
I love Etch-a-Sketch. I loved my Etch-a-Sketch.
Not as much as Light Bright, evidently.
No, because you know why? Because Light Bright, I felt like I have control over this. Etch-a-Sketch, I'm like, who can write on these things? This is witchcraft. I can never get the knobs right. I don't know. Etch-a-Sketch wasn't my jam.
We're also going to get some... Arlie Emery is the Toy Soldier General. I mean, is there ever been a perfect casting?
No, it's so great because his voice is so perfect for it. And I think it's such a great turn of essentially the generation who grew up in Full Metal Jacket are having kids and now he's playing a toy soldier in their movie. Right. And that's such a great turn.
I like when the toy soldier gets stepped on and he's just like, go on without me. Yeah. It's just all so smartly done. And I think, again, we talked about just all the things. And then we're talking about the voice actors. I mean, Jim Varney, one of my all-time favorites, Ernest, playing Slinky Dog. I mean, you gotta love that. Like, just the voice actors were so perfect for this movie. The animation is just I mean, obviously I'm saying something that's not shocking here, but I just couldn't even get over it how they're doing the reflections in Buzz's helmet.
Oh yeah.
Like, just, and I can't even, again, I probably didn't appreciate it as much as a kid at the time of what the innovation of that was and how that looked. My favorite shot you talked about what favorite scene. My favorite shot of the movie is when they're getting ready to leave the house, and Andy is dejected because he hasn't found Buzz or Woody, and they're in his bedroom, and he steps to the side, and the animation then pulls through the bedroom window and out to Sid's lawn.
Yeah.
Oh, God. I mean, you just don't get any better than that.
No, and that's where it's so important for that transition, that happened, I mean, decades prior from, like, kind of the flat... You're just kind of everything that's in the frame and is moving and being animated in that frame versus the let's move the animation like this is camera movements, like it's a film, like, that transition. And certainly, like, it's something that works so well here because there is so much movement and there's so much, like, rush to the movement. There's so many escapes and, like, and chases and the camera needing to move, which works really well in the Pizza Planet sequence too. Because I love the prelude to that at the gas station of, like, how the camera is moving, like, when they're, like, underneath the truck and then they're, like, waiting to get on the Pizza Planet vehicle, and you can just, like, hear the conversations, and it's, like, staying in their perspective, like, and how big that pickup truck of the Pizza Planet, like, delivery, like, looks in relation to them. It's just so many cool things. I mean, it's just iconic scene after iconic scene, and, certainly it gives birth to 24 other films that, come after it in under the Pixar banner, which is incredible.
How many we're up to now? I don't think I
25.
realized
There
that.
have been 25 Pixar films released.
Just for the record, we have more Marvel films.
Because we have 28 Marvel films. So I'll ask with this, and I find it hard to believe that there would be. Is there a holdup with this film? Because we talk holdups.
There is, and we're not going to stay on it. The holdups here are Joss Whedon and John Lasseter.
Yeah.
Who are remarkably vital to this film and why this film is what it is, and their contributions can never be understated. But if you know, and the hold up with them has not aged well. So that's all we'll say about that on this type of episode. And the thing is, a shame is because, Joss Whedon really changes the entire complexion of this movie.
Yeah.
He takes it out of being any chance of being a musical. He kind of brings in a lot of different elements that we like about, Also, when I was looking at this, and we're past the hold up at this point, so I don't want to put this person in that same is that the same? Is Joel Cohen?
It's not.
It's not. Okay, all right. I had noticed it on the credits and I was like, how have I not known Joel Cohen?
It's funny. I looked over at you and I saw you kind of give it like a twist to your face, and I was like, it's not that Joel Cohen.
All right. Well, because there's a lot of people that played on the script with this, so
yeah, because there's a lot, and this went through a lot of different drafts, a lot of this core idea of what if our toys were alive when we're not around, and then like how they develop the characters, and and certainly, so this is rewarded at the Oscars that year. It was nominated for Best Original Score, Best Original Song, and Best Original Screenplay, which is the first time an animated feature film was ever nominated in that category.
That's crazy. That's cool.
Which makes sense. Like, we're talking so much about dialogue and character development. It makes sense why it's awarded that way. It doesn't win for any of these. It gets an honorary Oscar, or like an Academy Achievement Award, I think is like how it's referred to, for the technical innovation of the film, because certainly I think everyone knew at that point, like, this is going to clearly change the scope of how animated films are made.
Yeah, and I mean, eventually leads the way to an best animated film category to be added not that long later, 2002. So it's really the benchmark of that. And then eventually, Toy Story 3 ends up getting a Best Picture nomination, which was the first and only film sequel to ever get a nomination when none of its original films ever did.
Oh, I love that fun fact.
Yeah.
And also totally deserving. Toy Story 3 is great. I mean, it'll rip your heart out and stomp on it for a while, but
I
it's
always
great.
think about your friend Anthony, who runs the Arts Quest, cinema, talking about how devastated he was during that scene, and rightfully so. Like,
it'll mess you up.
It will.
Go watch it, guys, but... So obviously we both love Toy Story, but as I said earlier, so this is, Pixar has released 25 films at this point. Is Toy Story your favorite? Is there another film that kind of takes that over?
I'm about to be that guy.
Oh, here we go.
No. I love Toy Story. I mean, we've been talking about it, and we don't get anything else without it. But Toy Story 2 is probably my favorite of the Pixar films. And I think probably Toy Story 3 is probably the best of the entire franchise, but Toy Story 2 is my favorite. I'd probably throw in there Coco, and maybe Monsters, Inc. is my other top favorites. Although Brave could be fighting for its own hand in marriage of my top as well. But I gotta ask you, what is your favorite? I mean, you are all things Disney, all things Pixar. I think you have every dress ever, made for Pixar. So what is...
I do. This is really tough. Like you said, Brave, and to me, Brave comes to, there's one, it's such an empowering story, and then two, I love the song that's in it. Mm-hmm. And also, if you follow the Pixar theory, the fact that that's the origin point of of Boo's story. Anyways, look it up. It's a lot of fun. I would say that my tops are obviously Toy Story is definitely up there. Coco as well. I think Coco is brilliant. I think it's probably the best Pixar film that's ever been made. The music is beautiful. The animation is next to none. I'm a really big fan of WALL-E.
Yeah.
That opening 20 minutes of just kind of WALL-E being WALL-E is great. And maybe it's because Hello Dolly has a very sentimental place for me, and Hello Dolly is used a lot in the beginning of WALL-E. If you don't know that, that's the musical that WALL-E is watching. So for that reason. But I gotta say, no 9 minutes will lift my spirits and break my heart more than the opening of Up.
Yeah, you're right. That first, 9 minutes of it is the best. There's no doubt.
When we moved into our new house, that was the thing we did. The first night we were living here is we watched Up, and I was like, why did we do this to ourselves? But also, I love it so much.
It's so good.
It's just so beautiful, and it's I don't think there's ever been something that does essentially what an entire film is supposed to do in such a short period of time. It's great, and that's the thing with Pixar. It's an insane amount of films. There's not really a bad one in the bunch. There, none of it's bad.
A couple of the Cars sequels get a little rough.
Yeah, but even at that, they're fun, and I think it's just, I think Cars was being made and pushed towards a even younger demographic than some of the other Pixar films, but I love all of them.
We talked a lot about Toy Story and about the best scenes and everything, but this movie is also so really quotable. So I have to ask you, do you have a most, line that you love the most from this movie?
Look, I'm Woody. Howdy, howdy, howdy.
I gotta be honest, did not see that coming.
It makes me laugh every single time. I mean, yes, it is. It has, to infinity and beyond. And the problem is I keep bringing it back to the Mrs. Nesbitt moment, the tell me the hat looked good. There's so many great lines, but that for whatever reason.
Snake in my boot.
Yeah, the shark doing that makes me so happy every time.
It is a really good. And you laughing is just the best to me.
But also, what kid didn't have that shark toy? You got it at the boardwalk.
Oh, yes.
It squirted water, maybe some of the time. Other times, the water just gets trapped in the tail, right? And you never see it again.
It never comes out. Yeah. So he's just there. Yeah.
And just becomes sludge. But that's the quote, the quotable aspect of this, and it goes back to what we were saying about, very deserved, recognition for the screenplay. And it from the animation to the Randy Newman's incredible music for this, there's kind of two main songs, and then a really beautiful musical sequence when Buzz is trying to sort his stuff out, and it's so great. But obviously this is a movie that not only is a technical achievement, but also has a really wonderful enduring legacy. So what do you think is the enduring legacy of Toy Story?
It's a really good question. So I want to say my favorite line probably is I don't believe the man has ever been to medical school. When Buzz is talking about
because he says it so he doesn't have training.
And that's it's the most we needed that cut too of a really good joke there, which is just great. I think the legacy obviously is just they took the animation to a whole different level, and like we said, it's a film from its story, which is why it gets nominated for an Oscar, to the fact that it's this groundbreaking animation, and that just talked to everybody, right? And you kind of start looking at the bones of it, So this film, like, they are very honest by saying it doesn't happen without Nightmare Before Christmas. They give complete credit to Nightmare Before Christmas for this happening, because Nightmare Before Christmas is when they saw Disney was allowed or kind of opened themselves up to work with somebody else, they saw where the success could be. And if that ends up failing, there's no Pixar. Disney then closes shop and they only do Disney stuff. But because Nightmare Before Christmas is so, successful, it allows them to be able to go, oh, okay, we can collaborate with other people, which is so important.
Well, and I think Lasseter has been, has said that directly.
Yes.
Like, he looks to that, which is so incredible because it allows, like, hey, what if we think about this as an expanded partnership? Like, what if we bring in other entities? I also just want to, as long as we're talking some park stuff lightly in here, please bring a Nightmare Before Christmas themed land to one of the Disney parks. I don't care which one you do it to, just bring it so we can go to it. That's all I have to say on that score.
I agree. The movie, though, we talked about, it went through a lot of different drafts and things like that. So there's a lot of things that could have been very different about it, too. Like, Buzz was originally named Tempest after the Atari video game. He was originally red. He was also named at one point Lunar Larry.
No.
Which I just love. Which is now going to be sometime, maybe, again, maybe that will be my name for Lunar Larry.
Can I tell you, I'm looking for a good Lunar Larry reference in an upcoming Pixar movie.
You know what? I put it to me, Lunar Larry is the equivalent to Charles Dickens when Tiny Tim was actually named Puny Pete at some point. So, but eventually he gets the name, obviously, Buzz, which is named after Buzz Aldrin, which makes the most sense. The character originally wasn't thinking that he was an actual space ranger, that he was supposed to be, like everybody else.
That's one of the greatest conceits of the movie, is that he actually thinks he's a space ranger.
So there's mixed stories on how I've heard about this. A lot give credit to Joss Whedon when he came in and changed the script. Some have actually give the credit to Tim Allen and the way that Tim Allen chose to do the voiceover.
You're mocking me, aren't you?
So, a lot really is interesting, but that gets changed. And again, talking about the Joss Whedon actually, so Bo Peep's not supposed to be in this. It's supposed to be Barbie. Barbie was supposed to be that character. But Mattel was just like, no, we don't want our character. We don't want Barbie in it. And for actually a really good reason, which was they didn't want to put a personality to Barbie. And so that all little girls or whoever plays with Barbies can put their own personality to Barbie. So that was their decision to never want to put Barbie in an animated film. Obviously, the success and creative financial reasons of Toy Story allows them to change their mind in later films for that. But the real cool thing about it was Barbie was supposed to be, because you got to think this was 95, 92 was Terminator 2. Barbie was essentially supposed to be like Sarah Connor in this movie. And at one point actually comes and saves Buzz and Woody in the Barbie mobile.
Okay, I'm just saying I want that. No, and I love Bo Peep, and certainly how they develop Bo Peep's character later on is really fun. And what they do with Barbie in Toy Story 3 is a lot of fun. Like, what happens, like, with her and Ken, and, like... But at that, I'm sorry, there's just something so fantastic in 90s about this. Obviously, don't touch Toy Story, don't Lucas this, but, like, at the same time...
Yeah, it would have been cool.
That would have been cool.
But, and then Bo Peep, which you'll like this, Bo Peep in Toy Story 4... She was modeled after Rey from Star Wars.
Amazing.
Yeah.
The pants.
Right.
The pants are very similar.
Disney fought against the name Toy Story for a long time because they didn't want the name Toy in there because they worried that would shy away from teenagers and adults from wanting to see the movie. Obviously, that's not a problem anymore. Yeah. And you couldn't even imagine it being named anything else at this point.
Well, no, it's so iconic, and I think, like, I always find those, like, stories with titles, like, really interesting because, like, certainly there are really dramatic versions of this with certain films, but, like, it's named anything else. It's not that it wouldn't be successful, it's just when you get so used to, like, well, that's what the thing is called, it's, like, hard to imagine it ever being anything else. So you just want to be like, whoever finally pushed this through, thank you, it's a great title for exactly what it is.
Buzz Lightyear was not the original Tim Allen was not the original first voice.
Who was
it? Supposed to be Billy Crystal. Billy Crystal said the biggest regret of his career was turning down that role.
I'm really glad he did. The Tim Allen voice acting in this is like so perfect because you have to have someone who plays that so straight and serious that there's not even a hint of sarcasm in the voice. And Billy Crystal, as we get to see him as Mike Wazowski in Monsters, Inc., there's always going to be a little bit of that in how he does his voice acting performances. So that would have really, I think, kind of broke some of the magic of that character.
There's something just so... You forget you're watching an animated film with how well Buzz and Woody... and it's such a credit to Tom Hanks and Tim Allen and their voice acting in this movie. That you really feel like this buddy... You understand why the next films they are, friends, but they work off of each other so well. Like, it's... sometimes people talk about voice actors and whether they should be nominated for awards, and you listen to those two and how they play these two parts, it's really hard to argue with that.
Well, yeah, and there's such comedic tension in their portrayals of each character, and then also, too, there's something very funny as, someone who grew up watching Tom Hanks movies, so it's not like the voice was unfamiliar to me by the time I saw Toy Story, hearing Tom Hanks be kind of, agitated and irritable, it calls to, him as Jimmy Dugan in A League of Their Own, so it's, kind of fun to get to hear that, in a children's film.
Right, yes, right. The fun thing about Tom Hanks, you being all things Tom Hanks, fandom, he actually, so what they do was they brought them in to do their voice acting before they finish animation so that they can actually change the animation to the actors. Tom Hanks improvised so much that we're still using some of his improvised stuff from Toy Story 1 and Toy Story 4.
Amazing.
So a lot of things, the whole arm bit is a whole thing that Tom Hanks had added in. So it's a really big, really interesting from that end of it.
Well, and he's such a wonderful physical comedian. Obviously, those aren't exactly the roles, except when he's, on SNL and doing David S. Pumpkins. He's not doing that as much anymore, certainly, but, that's what he did. He was such a great physical comedian. You just think about, the great moment in The Burbs when he's the end part where he's take me to the hospital, I've been blown up.
Yes.
I mean, that's essentially Woody. That's the nexus of Woody right there, is probably where he was already developing that character, even though he didn't know that yet.
But your also fun fact here is, so you talked about your brother having the Woody doll.
No, Buzz Lightyear.
Oh, he had a Buzz Lightyear. That was my mistake. I'm sorry. So the Buzz Lightyear the voice that you hear in the toys and the video games is not Tom Hanks. You know who it is, don't you?
It's actually his brother.
It is Jim Hanks.
Because he does that when Tom is busy.
Right.
They call in Jim.
I gotta be honest with you. I'm 100%. I read this when I was doing my research on this. I had to look up if Tom Hanks actually had a brother, because I just went, Tom Hanks has a brother, Jim Hanks, that does his voice acting when he's not around. It sounded really like a made-up story to me.
I did the same thing. I was like, I need to check my facts on this. I do not want to have a moops on this episode. And I was like, and I don't believe this. And then I just kept finding it place after place after place. And I would love it, actually, if he's, totally making this up and he's, done some deep fake that he has a brother. Nothing would make me happier. But I was able to also verify, no, he has a brother, and his brother does some of his voice acting work.
I agree. And then my last kind of trivia question I have to ask you.
Yes.
Do you know why Andy's father is not in this movie? What is the reason of where he is?
It's a Disney movie. He's obviously dead.
That could be a reason. There's actually no reason ever given.
No, there isn't. I just think I always made the assumption.
But do you know why he's not in it?
No, I don't.
Because they wrote the entire story, and when they were done, they realized they had not put the father in and had no place to put the father into the movie. And at the time, creating human characters were so more expensive and time-consuming that they just went, he's not needed for the story. We're just not putting him in.
It makes sense because, let's all be honest with ourselves. The humans in this are kind of nightmare fuel unto themselves. We all say Sid's scary because, he's blowing up toys, but it's also because of how his face looks, if we're being honest.
Well, my understanding is Pixar did not necessarily want humans in it.
They wanted to do it Muppet Baby style.
Yes, but Disney was kind of they were the ones that pushed and said, no, you have to have some humans in it.
And I kind of get it because, one, the Sid character alone, you can't really have without, showing him at some point. And then, certainly, seeing Andy's kind of, dejected face as, he's looking for his toys. That kind of works nicely. But you don't really see anyone except for Sid for very long. And that show, I never knew that was the story with the dad. I had heard a lot of theories of what people thought happened to the parent, the other parent in the situation, if it's a single parent household, so I'd heard a lot of theories about it, but I just assumed, well, it's a Disney movie that one parent's always dead or dies, very early in the movie. It feels that,
yeah. I mean, I agree. So, I mean, it is probably maybe the premiere, animated film, right?
Yeah, I mean, when I think about, and, certainly when you talk about coming out in concert with those other Disney Renaissance films, you have such a wealth of animation that I got to grow up with and see in theaters and benchmark those as the standard, but there's just something special and different about Toy Story. And I think anytime you have a group of creatives that are we are going to strive to do this thing, and we're just going to keep working and creating and building machines to make this thing happen, and then it finally does. How do you not love the thing that comes out of that? That so much passion and love and so many mistakes and so much of having to just keep trying and trying again. It's the best of what filmmaking is when it comes from a space of pure innovation and pure desire just to create and bring something to audiences.
I think it's really well said. I mean, it's a shame though that they're making the live action version of it.
What?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Stop.
Woody's being played by Ben Schwartz. And Buzz Lightyear is being played by Bill Hader. I mean, honestly, I think it's great casting, and it's going to be a great version of the movie, so I'm excited to see the live action.
All right, well, thank you for that hot panic. That was then very tempered with some humor. If you're not currently following us on social media, please follow us at How Could You Podcast on Instagram, at How Could You Pod on Twitter. You can always send us comments and suggestions. Obviously, clearly, we take them because that's how this episode came to be, to howcouldyoupodcast@gmail.com. If you are someone who is interested in coming out to our Nostalgia Cinema Series at Civic Theater, we are very excited. On May 28th, that's Memorial Day weekend at 4 p.m. We're going to be showing American Graffiti. Speaking of George Lucas, we are so excited to be showing that film, so stay tuned for all of our posts about that and the remaining episodes in Season 4.
And until next time, enjoy the Odyssey to infinity and beyond.